So, alright, good morning everyone. So, we will be discussing the part 2 of our topic na good governance in the corporate governance. So, part 2 ni siya. Kaya di ba ang ato ang discussion sa ito ang week 7 is about good governance and corporate governance Japon. So, again, ang ato ang learning outcome for our topic, we will be defining the good governance, nabuhat naman natin siya kahapon, and also we already discussed the components in a democratic society, and for today, we will be discussing how does it apply on corporate governance and good governance na to. So first, before na mag-start diri sa tuang theories on good governance, as recall na lang po sa tuang topic yesterday. So, ang meaning sa tuang good governance, excuse me. So, this is an approach to government that is committed to creating a system na founded siya by the justice and peace nga nagaprotect sa isa ka individuals human rights and even sa ilahang civil liberties. So again, according to the United Nations or the UN, ang good governance daw is measured siya by the 8 factors. First, yung katong participation, tapos natay rule of law, transparency, responsiveness, consensus-oriented, equity and inclusiveness, napod ang effectiveness and efficiency, and even ang accountability. So, mao to siya to ang good governance from our yesterday's topic. While ang corporate governance class, mao ni siya ang system of rules, mga policies, mga practices that naga-dictate how a company's board of directors manages and even oversee nila ang operation sa isa ka company. So that is the definition of the good governance in the corporate governance. So now, let us proceed sa tuang theories on good governance. So, there are several theories no under sa tuang good governance. Most commonly used na mga theories are as it is applied sa pagbi-business. First is the agency theory, natay stakeholder theory, stewardship theory, and the resource dependency theory. So, mao ni siya ang mga commonly used, although daghan pa jud ka mga theories ginagamit in terms of good governance. So later on, i-recall lang na ko kung unsa tong mga other agencies na pwede na i-apply with the good governance. So, class, kaning agency theory manggod. This is also known as the principal agent theory. So, the focus of which as it affects contemporary corporation is to strike a balance to harmonize the opposing concern of the principal and even sa agent. So, one of the constraints of this theory man good is that the restriction of the principal sa mga owners and it also take up the interest of the owner. So then again, class, there are other participants manggod who have interest in the deal that should be given consideration with the agency theory. So under the agency theory, we have the assumptions manggod that the owner's interest may differ from the manager's interest. So na-adjust siya diferensya between the owner's interest o sa mga manager's interest. While under sa agency theory, ang main board function jud aning agency theory is the safeguard owner's resources and even ang ilahang mga interest. Then, it also supervise the management and also ang mga staff under sa agency theory. So, ang issues lang na ma-encounter nato diri sa agency theory is that there is an emphasis manggod on the control that may stifle the innovation or even i-reduce ang motivation sa isa ka staff. So mao na siya ang isa ka issue diri sa ato ang agency theory. And then we have the delegation of authority para mag-manage of assets. So first kay mugikan diri sa self-interest, wealth maximization of principles. Then pwede sad siya padulong corporate from the so from here pwede siya vice versa na mapatulong sa corporate governance and pabalik na po diri sa to ang mga self-interest, wealth maximization, and the principles. Then, pag niabot na siya diri sa to ang corporate governance, pwede po siya mapadulong dito sa to ang ahente or sa to ang sarili mismo, sa sariling interest na to, kumbaga. Pwede siya mubalik na po padulong o corporate governance issues para again, mubalik din sa self-interest, maximize ang ang kayamanan in the principles. And also, from the self-interest, wealth maximization in the principles, kaya mo directly go siya sa tuang self-interest and also the self-interest and agent kay pabalik diriya. So, vice versa lang dyan siya tanan with the agency model. So, class, with the delegates authority para ma-manage siya tato ang mga asset, according kay Dr. Edward Freeman, we will be discussing on our next topic, the stakeholder theory. Okay, so musunod na later on sa tuang stakeholder theory. So, according to Dr. Freeman, the stakeholder theory manggod, gina-claim niya nga ang isa ka firm sa stakeholders gina-embrace niya just about anyone nga affected sa business and even sa mga ventures sa isa ka company. So, to further illustrate what I have said, this is a stakeholders theory, so we will be differentiating the stakeholder theory versus a shareholder theory. So, according to Milton Friedman, he is an economist whose work fashioned much of the 20th century corporate America. He is a believer in the free market system and no government intervention. So, kani siya nga paniniwala, class. It helped him shape his shareholder theory manggod of capitalism. So that a company's sole responsibility manggod is to make money lang jud for its shareholder. So for Friedman class in capitalism, the only stakeholders a company should care about are its shareholder. Maura jud to ang iyahon na siya ipaki. So his view is centered on companies being compelled para maka-generate of more earnings para mag-gratify niya ang mga shareholders and para ma-carry niya ang progressive nga development sa ilahang company and even for the sake of their shareholder. Then, with the stakeholder theory class, it opposes the view of Milton Friedman, no? Sa iyahang shareholder theory. So, kaning first class gina-discuss na to most likely ang ato ang shareholder theory. While kaning sa to ang pangduha, we will be discussing the stakeholder theory. So, again, a shareholder theory manggod, according kay Dr. Freeman, nag-imply ni siya that a company's stakeholder and those groups without kanang support sa isa ka organization kay muundang ang ilahang existence sa company. So mao ni siya ang sa to ang stakeholder theory. So with the stakeholder theory, there are groups na involve ani nga theory. So first are the customers, naapo dara ang mga empleyado, mga suppliers sa ang mga products and services, mga political actions group belong po sa tuang ano or include sila sa ato ang theory theory under the stakeholders theory. And then we also have the environmental groups, mga local communities, media, financial institutions, governmental groups, and etc. And then, kaganihan na topic na to ang binuhatan ni Edward Freeman o ni Milton Friedman. So, unsa kaya ang ilahang kalahian sa ilahang theory, no? Sa ilahang duha. So, this is the Milton Friedman versus Edward Freeman. So, according kay Milton Friedman sa ilahang theory, so the only group that has immoral claim on the corporation are the people who own or naa sila yung sarili nilang share of stock sa isa ka kumpanya or mas kilala sila sa tawag na mga shareholders. While diri kay Edward Freeman, there are many groups that have immoral claim on the corporation because the corporation ay naa sila yung potential to either harm or benefit ang ilahang stakeholders. So class, before we will proceed to our next slide, Dr. Freeman's interpretation manggod nag-render sa mga corporate environment as an ecosystem of connected and interrelated mga groups. So this is what they needed to be well thought out and para ma-fulfill nila and para ma-keep nila ang company sa ilahang fitness and even sa ilahang successful or sa ilahang success for the long term nga operation or dapat masustain nila ang ilahang business. So Dr. Freeman class further explain how a healthy company never loses sight of everyone involved sa ilahang success. So ang stakeholder theory ginaingon that if it treats its if it treats the employees badly, a company will eventually fail. Yes, of course, kasi diba, moral life and blood nato ang mga workers nato. If wala ang teamwork, if wala ang cooperation sa to ang mga employees, most probably our business will fail. So if it forces its project on communities to detrimental effect, so the same would likely to happen. So kung failure na kasi mo ang paghandle sa mga employee, most probably ang imuhang project na gusto nimo mahitabo ay ma-fail sad. So again, a company can't ignore any of its stakeholder and truly succeed. So we have to focus or we have to give pakialam sa to ang mga stakeholders, sa to ang mga employees or anyone na involved or foresee na to nga involved in the success of our company. So, with Edward Freeman's view on stakeholder theory manggod with the 21st century na to nga time, if you can get all your stakeholders manggod to swim or even row in the same direction na gusto ninyo ma-achieve, you have got a company with a momentum and even real power. So, Freeman says manggod, saying that the profits are the only important thing to a company is like saying red blood cells are life. So you need red blood cells sa tuang life, but you need so much more kay para mo lihok ang ato ang lawas because unless red blood cell kay dili mo operate o successfully ang ato ang lawas no luya ang ato lawas kumbaga. So that is easier way to understand the stakeholder theory of the Edward Freeman sa atang example with our physical body. So stakeholder theory class is all the more significant in the modern global economy. So it note ni Freeman that an organization needs to be attentive not only of those who hold stock in the company, but also for those who work in its stores, who work and live near its factories, pwede sad to those who do the business with it, ang ilahang mga partners, and even ilahang mga competitors kay ilahang competitors as the company may shape the landscape in its industry. Then we also have the stakeholders model. So ang stakeholders model class, naadara first ang investor. So si investor, pwede siya manghiram kay creditor, pwede po siya mag-adto ka sa political system para mag-help with the government. And also, they have to foresee the firm's performance. Then from this point, from the firm performance, pwede na mapalulong kay creditor, kay government, the labor union, the political system, customer, society, and vice versa. Vice versa, then kani si employee class, syempre, they help the firm to be successful and ilahang performance kay magiging 100% nga kung ano maka-help sa profitability sa isang kakuan, sa isang ka-firm. So, from the employees, yung pwede sila maadto to the labor union para maka-help like the dole, yung ana. Then, pwede sila mo dulog sa ato ang society or ato mga customer or kinsa badara ang ato ang mga support sa tuang life. So, stewardship model ka. So, can anyone read the definition of the stewardship theory?
Stewardship theory is a theory that administrators left on their own discretion will most likely act as responsible stewards of the assets they control.
Okay, thank you so much. So this theory class is an alternative view of agency theory. Again, alternative view ni siya sa tuang agency theory ha, in which ang mga managers are assumed na mo-act in their own self-interest at the expense sa ilahang mga shareholders. So unsa kaya ang objective of the stewardship governance? Can anyone read the objective of stewardship governance?
Stewardship theory of governance as one voice of the organization has a well-defined objective of shareholders satisfaction, having a specific chief to spearhead the company, form a single channel to corresponding business needs to the shareholders and vice versa.
All right, thank you so much. So, for a while. So, class, the objective of stewardship governance this is a steward that is marked as somebody who safeguard and even takes care of the needs sa ibang tao, no? So, under this specific theory, manggod, the business executives look after sa interest nila mga shareholders and even make the decision on their behalf so that the solitary intention ay ma-generate ni siya and even ma-uphold ang pag-thrive sa organization so the shareholders kay ma-flourish na lang nila ang ilahang mga decision, then even ma-safeguard nila ang needed sa isang company or sa business, then ma-execute sa nila ang mga interest sa kabuuhan, no? So that through this manggod, it permits the familiar knowledge of organizational operation and ma-profound nila ang commitment para sa success sa inyong organization. Pwede sad ang atoang stewardship theory of governance is that they are the voice of the organization as well as gina-define na objective of the shareholder satisfaction nila and having a specific chief again sa ilahang spearhead in the company, again forms a single channel para mag-correspond ilahang business needs, sa ilahang shareholder. So this is also a circumvents bewilderment as to who is in command sa ilahang business, sa ilahang organization, and then so when a firms need manggod ang kuan ang pag-brainstorming or pag-share sa ilahang mga knowledge, paunsa nila ma-operate ang ilahang organization para excuse me, para ma-meet nila ang success as a whole sila ang organization. So sa excuse me. Huwag inom sa kong tubig gas kadali ha. So with the objective of stewardship governance class, there is also an opposing theory diri sa turang stewardship model. Can anyone read the first paragraph sa then another one sa second paragraph, please? Anyone can read the first paragraph, class?
The agency theory converges on a check and balance type of governance. The chief executive officer and chairman of the board are two separate entities. Aside from this, the firm is composed of independent members to form part of the board of directors who are in charge with keeping an eye on management to circumvent glitches.
Okay, next paragraph.
The stakeholder theory, on the other hand, scrutinize the wishes of not only shareholders but of every group correlated with the outfit, together with employees, suppliers, and business partners. And theoretically, not a single cluster is supposed to be more important than the other.
Okay, class, thank you so much for that. So, again, sa opposing theories, how stewardship theory differ from the other theories. So, for better understanding, let us view this in contrast with the other two widely held governance style, no, as presented na to earlier. Atong sa different theories na to, the agency theory model, then we also have discussed the stakeholders model, then kani siya karon is the stewardship model. So again, with the agency theory, naadyo diri ang paano check and balance na to. Kumbaga, dili lang jud ikaw ang pwede mo decide sa tanan. Yung naadyo ka, for example, dili lang ang president ang needed na make of decision, or always na jud final ang iyahang decision kay dapat, for example, sa iyahang vice president, kay dapat magkaroon ng check and balance if unsa ang advantage sa iyahang decision na being made, unsa ang disadvantage, tapos timbangon ninyo kung unsa ba jud ang much better para success niyo sa inyong business before deciding on what to do para sa kabuuhan na success in inyong organization. So, plus, the assumption for this stewardship theory is that owners and managers have similar dapat na interest. While ang ilahang function diri sa tuang model, they are improving their performance and even adding a value to the top decisions and even sila mga strategy, so that this is called also the partner management type of doing their job. Then ang key issue lang jud ani nga model is that the management plans mangod and even ilahang mga routines may not be given an ample examination. So unsa kaya nato mabalaan ang right fit or the right decision for this kind of theory? Excuse me. So respectively class, each business manggod outfit is distinctive siya in terms sa ato ang mga goods o sa mga services ato ang gina-provide sa ato ang mga target customers and ato ang mga expected goals no with our products. Um, we have to acknowledge that the corporate governance is essential siya in the gateway to a product business. So, ang mga executives ani class, gina-oath nila to decide the governance approach that best suits its characters, regardless kung unsang agency ilahang ginagamit or even ang mga shareholder or stewardship nila or even ba na hybrid type ang ilahang approach like pwede halo sa shareholder ng stewardship, pwede sa agency stewardship ng shareholder, or si stewardship kay iyang partner is the agency theory. So, hybrid type siya. So, opting for and even type of governance necessities that the right persona with the unquestionable nga disposition be on the board to direct the organizations. So we have this the stewardship model nga chart. So from our shareholders, sorry. So from the performance or the shareholder profile, padulong sa to ang shareholders, then from our shareholders kay we need to motivate our shareholders no para magkaroon ta og good stewarding of our organization. Then if we have a good steward, so mas nindot ang performance and magkaroon og good profit ang ato ang organization. So from the vice versa of the stewardship to our shareholders, so we have the empowerment and the trust. Then through this stewardship no by our shareholders kay they can protect and even maximize ang ilahang mga shareholders wealth or ilahang profit sa ilahang company. Then we also have the dependency theory. This is also known as the resource dependency theory or the RDT. So organizational success in RDT class is defined as the organizations maximizing their power. So the RDT class again can resource dependence theory ginasuggest ani that the performers deficient in needed resources will pursue ang ilahang collaboration no and even the affiliation with with others in order para ma-acquire nila ang mga required na mga resources. Likewise, ma-institute nila and even makabuhat sila og effort para ma-modify nila ang ilahang dependence relationship by curtailing their own dependence or by snowballing the dependency of other outfits. So, with this perspective, with the perspective of the dependency theory, the firms are seen as alliance, kumbaga, ka-alyansa nato, alerting their network and arrays of behavior para makuha nila, masustain nila ang required peripheral na resources. So, unsa-unsa man namang assumptions na pwede nato mahuna-hunaan under this dependency theory. First, can anyone read the assumptions from 1 to 4?
Organizational endurance, and survival depend on maintaining. Ay, wait lang. Organizational endurance and survival depend on maintaining relation
Coalition.
of
Coalition.
coalition of support to obtain resources and legitimacy.
Okay, thank you. Pangduha,
Organizational are assumed to consist of both internal and external conditions which arise from social interaction that are molded to manipulate
and government behavior. Okay, number 3.
The environment is assumed to include limited and treasured resources important to organizational survival.
Proceed.
Receive the environment proffers the dilemma of organization confronting ambiguity in resource procurement.
Okay, next.
Organizations are assumed to operate toward dualistic correlated objectives. A. Acquiring control of resources that minimize their dependence on the other organizations, and control over resources that maximize the dependence of other organizations on themselves.
Okay, thank you so much for participating for reading our topic for today. So, first assumption, the organizational endurance and ilahang pag-survive no survival depend on maintaining silang coalition. So, coalition of support to obtain resources and legitimacy. So, coalition class, meaning, it is the denotation no, sa mga group na form when two or more people or even mga factions ba, state ba, mga political parties or military, ay mo agree sila to work together temporarily lang in a partnership para ma-achieve nila ang common goal. That common goal is to achieve their success. So, mawala siya ang meaning sa coalition. Then, organizations are assumed to consist of both internal and external coalition, which nag-aaray siya sa social interactions that are molded para ma-manipulate and govern ng behavior. So, again, ang coalition, di ba, kay temporary lang sa mga partnership, no? Kay para ma-manipulate or even ma-mold nila kung sa itong mga butang na gusto nila ma-achieve. Then, the environment is assumed to include limited and treasured mga resources, important sa ito ang organizational survival. So, ang meaning sa per se class, aning per se ay intrinsic type siya. So, kumbaga, sa ato ang self or within ourself or by itself, kumbaga, yeah, for example, per se, so by itself, so that the environment proffers the dilemma of organization confronting ang ambiguity. So, kaning ambiguity is the exactness sa isa ka butang na ma-procure niya ang isa ka resources. Then, pang-apat, organizations are assumed para mo-operate toward the dualistic correlated na mga objectives. So, mauna siya ang pag-acquire or makakuha siya og control over the resources na ma-minimize ang pagiging dependent mo sa isa ka butang o sa inyong organizations. Then, the control over to the resources that maximize the dependence sa organization itself. And we have the main board function. So, class, in realizing manggod, whichever objective is supposed to have an effect on the exchange among the organization, because of this objective class, this sovereignty affects our objective. So these are the main board function under sa tuang dependency theory. So first is the external influence ato kay diba again kaganiya with the organization mango we have to assume the both the internal and external na coalition. So let us flex more on the external influence no by our dependency theory. So we have to secure the resources, we have to improve the stakeholders relation, and even we have to bring the external perspective. And the key issues sorry. So the key issues under this dependency theory is that first, we have the external focus of the board members that meaning the internal supervision is neglected na kay mas na-focus na sa mga external influences no, versus internal. So, because of this lack of focus, the board members may lack of expertise. Kaya natangbong lang man sa dara ang problema, dili naman sila dili na sila mo adjust, dili sila flexible kumbaga. So, while the resource dependency theory class was initially conveyed siya para mo-confer sa iyang mga affairs between the organization, this particular nga theory is relevant to the relationship amid sa components within the organization. So again, the RDT or the dependency theory is coherent siya with the ecological even sa institutional theory of organization nga nag-perceive as unrelenting na assemblies of order under sa endless na reinterpretation and even sa pag-compromise, sa pag-interact nila with the environment of the commotion, mga disorders sa organization, that is, we have to mention as a host of giving us a challenge, and sometimes magkaroon po ng problem with the opposing interests of the each parties of the shareholders and the stakeholders. So again, these are the other theories na dili kayo commonly used under the good governance. So we have the transaction cost theory, political theory, business ethics, corporate governance theory. We also have the virtue ethics theory, the feminist ethics theory, and the discourse ethics theory. So mga siya mga other na mga theories. So let us proceed sa tuang key governance paradoxes. So first question, first versus is that kinsa ang nagagovern sa ilaha, expert versus ang stakeholders ba? Or sa board nga rules kay conformance ba ka nga type or performance type ka nga kuan nga pagka leader sa inyong organization, or sa inyong management relationship from being the manager, o sa ang imong approach sa inyong employees, supervision type ba ka nga pagka-leader or supportive ka type nga pagka-leader. So that is the key governance paradoxes of the organization. So that is all our topic for our week 8. Do you have any question with regards to one topic for today? You can unmute your microphone, class. If you do have questions, clarifications sa tuang topic for today. Anyone? Pwede naman maka-unmute. Dana ito ang lesson for our week 8. Hello? Ayan. Isa pala. Do you have questions, clarifications?
None so far, ma'am.
None so far? Sorry, hinay ako. Questions, clarification, class? You can unmute the class. You can unmute yourself. Any questions?
Wala naman.
Alright, so if you have question later on sa pagbasa-basa ninyo balik or if ever you will watch the video again sa tuang Google Drive, you can ask questions sa